مسألة حولين Daf Kuf Bet Vav Amud Aleph, sixth to last line. We're going again. Sources: how do you know meat and milk are asur for eating and benefit? Amar Shlakish minan basar halav shasur. Tamanor pasuk says al tochil min ra ubashel vushal. You cannot eat it roasted partially, and you can't eat it cooked with water. This is the Korban Pesach. She'en tadamar mevushal, because now you don't have to tell me mevushal. Why? Mas mevushal. Why mention it? Because we already said ubashel. אמר לך שיש לך בישול אחר שמוכר, not a cooking itself. איזה, what's that? זה בסבב חלב, it's meat and milk is a source of benefit. אמר רבי יוחנן, just 1 second. כעורה זו שנה רבי. This is as terrible as to you, like רבי לא תאכלן בסוס, don't eat it. בבשר חלב מדבר is referring to meat and milk. אתה אומר בבשר חלב מדבר is only referring to meat and milk, או אין אלא באחד מכל ספר, maybe it refers to anything else. אמר therefore we say, still matter 13 מידות של התורה נשארים learn from the way that we learn through the Torah. There's 13 ways that we learn the Torah. Drashot. Davar HaMedben, something that's learned from the context. Lamak told me better, therefore, what is this context? Bishnei meaning two different items being put together, right? Which is Kochim and Hulin being mixed. Afkam Shemini to do regarding Basar Halav, also two different things. In my eighth, so we say we're bringing proof from that pasuk. I would have thought by eating, but not by benefiting. Kamash from there from saying, and Vushal teaches you meat and milk as a benefit as well. For to be according to the baby, in order, can have benefit. Not kala mihachak is the pasuk. The American pasuk says, "Ki am kadosh et Hashem, it should be kadosh." The American by elsewhere regarding the it says, "V'lo yeh kadesh." Ibn Israel, don't be a kadesh, which means person should not be, you know, promiscuous. Malalan banaj is like really referring to benefiting by promiscuity. Afkan banas also regarding over here, but also promiscuity. The different proof. Allah should not have any nibla. I'm not allowed to says when you sell it to the goy, don't sell it cooked with milk. The Berev Shanatana, this is the most famous one. It says 3 times you should not cook the goat with the mother's milk. حدث عن الأخ one to say that's sort to eat. فحدث عن one for benefit. فحدث عن one says you can't cook it. Tanabart says it's Ben Yudah Mer. بنايم سلسلة حدث شاسور. لما كان بزوس كي عم كتر هذا شبي كدوش. لما الآن بعد شيء كدوش تيلين وبصير سدد رفضة تخلو. شبي كدوش and don't have torn meat like taref. Kadosh and kadosh again. Gzer shava. Madan asu shuzak over there. You can't eat terefa. Afkan asu shuzak as well. The end the other achila only brings proof for eating. But I know can have benefit as well. Tamat kavachomer bekavachomer ma orla shalon navda bavira. In orla, the first 3 years of a fruit tree, you can't have benefit and there's no avera with it. Meat and milk where there has been an avera because you can't cook it. And the so kavachomer you for sure can have benefit. The Gemara says you can't bring a proof because there was never a set time. There was never a point in contention that had a period when it was mutar by Orla. Hamas Pesach they're not bringing proof from Hamas Pesach that it's not necessarily true because Shaydalo Shadda Kosher was banana because it also had a period where it was kasher and it's also a source of benefit. Mal Hamas Pesach Shekan Karet, but Hamas Pesach you can't bring a proof from because that's a super karet. Meat and milk is just makut. They're not bringing a proof from Kilaim of the vineyard. Also karet, now also not karet, and you have a super benefit. Shayna Karet was banana. Amal Exer Shiva. So now. He says have Xer Shiva. And then he said Kavachomer. Why did Xer Shiva? I looked at the Kula Havachomer Marla, which means Kavachomer from Marla. Marla Shalona Dababra, just like Allah, no Avira. Asura Ben Rechavana, you cannot benefit or eating. But Barav Shanada Ben Solina, there has been an Avira. In the Jasur Ben Achila Ben and you can't have benefit or eating. Because you would have thought, Choresh Bishurba Hamor Bachosem Bia Barabadash Yachiach. I'll bring a disproof, a flaw in that logic, because I'll bring a proof from someone who plows with two different animals or muzzles the cow and threshes. Knock it out. Why? That's an avira being done, and it's still mutar for benefit. So maybe meat milk is not proof. Where it says why do you say that the vineyard kilayim is a proof? Disproof. Why don't you bring up disproof from Orla? Let the argument keep on repeating, but let it be an outside, and then have the common denominator. We have many times throughout Shas that whenever you have proofs and disproofs from different cases. Like, oh, why? How can you say this if this has A? No, but this has B. Then what we do is we just do a and then we say what's the common denominator, and we bring a proof from there. Whereas the Maravashi, we said you can't do that. Because the Nevela is disproof. She'asura ba'achila umutar bana'ah, because there's mutar to be eaten, it's asur to be eaten, chas v'shalom, and you cannot benefit, and you can benefit. Amalei Mordechai Rav Ashi. Just 1 second. Hacha Amir Mishmei Rav Lesh Lakish. Kol ma hasad shabim kavah parchinan. Any common denominator that we have a proof from within. Me'alma lo parchinan. It can be refuted from within, but it can't be refuted from elsewhere. Meaning, if you have a tzad shaveh, the common denominator, which we say, oh, they all share the common characteristic, that can be disproved if it has a common denominator issue from within. However, you can't knock it out from outside. Yani like Nevilah. Has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Mar says, yeah, that's the case. Then why don't we have the common denominator as a proof? Why I need a climb and kavachomer? Mar says, Mission Tikkun Mifrach, because there will be a flaw. Malat says, Renche Ken Glukarka, or Lan Hametz, is different because they grow from the ground and the animals don't. Yeah, that's the case. Hashanam is regarding the climb of the vineyard as well. Ikum Mifrach, Malik Leg, Ken Glukarka, also grows from the ground. So can't be proof for me to milk. Marcus Amar later, more than Hachi, Amir Shmid Rashakish, Kol Master any type of common denominator problems only can be Lo Mart Hada Kavachmer Vachina Kodo Lo Parchina. We don't have a problem that Lo Mart means like no, if you would have said that that's not gonna that's a way of saying that we introduced a problem to the common denominator proof. So therefore, in this case, where we're trying to bring a proof from a tzad shaveh, the common denominator, this is an objection that's being proven from a completely different context. And therefore, we have to show that there's a substantial difference between the two cases in order to be able to not have a problem with that question. So over here, we said, oh, hametz is karet. We said it's not a problem because you have urla. That's not karet and asur b'hana. And we had common denominator, they all have isur b'hana without having karet. But then we said, oh, but medium milk is different than chametz and all that because it's not grown from the ground. And then we said, that won't be a flaw in what we're saying because that was never one of our starting common denominators of growing from the ground. We never had that with the meat and milk as a problem. It happens to be different, but that's not a refutation. It's not a flaw. If that's the case, let's have a flaw in all three cases. That what malakul shekin karka or la hametz and climb all coming from the ground versus meat and milk. Again, hada mehada, when you're bringing one thing versus another, we're trying to bring a proof from meat and milk from orla. Kulu v'hamra parachina. We can ask a question regarding leniency or stringency. Kolu lo parachina. We can't just say, oh, it's different because it grows from the ground. Hada mehada, when you bring one for two, I feel like kolu lo parachina. You can't ask. So you can bring a disproof from a random or different type of flaw. Hada mehada, when you do one for three, if it's necessary, we could repeat the questions and say, oh, A is different than B and B is different than C, then you have a common denominator. When you knock it out with a minor flaw, if there is no reason to say that we say that. You can ask what you can't compare A to B because one's stringent or lenient. But you can't ask a question based off of a minor difference. Okay, why don't you knock it out from the following? Lime is never mutar versus meat and milk. That is mutar at one point separately. It's telling you Kila Kaim is a sword from benefit from the beginning. And they were mutar when they were first planted, before they started rooting together. Mativ Rav Mishmaya Bar Zaira. You had a question. Someone puts a plant that had a hole in the flower pot, through a vineyard. If it increased by 1 to 200th portion while it was inside, it's asur. That is the amount that it cannot be nullified, and it will be asur. Hosif can only get increased, but if it will not increase, it's not. Similarly, only what grows is becoming asur, not what was there from before. The Gemara says, "Amar Abayah." Today, Kettiv have two pesukim that seemingly are a contradiction. Kettiv, when pasuk says, "Ben tikdash hamaleah," the growth will be a problem. The Tiba hides that, and also pasuk says the seed will be a problem, seemingly even before. So is it after growth or before? Gemara says, "How can that is possible?" Zarua me'aikaro, if it was planted in the beginning, Bahashad is asur when it becomes rooted. Zarua babar is already planted, then you added it. Hosifin only if it increased in growth, that's when it becomes asur. Lo hosif lo, but if not, then not. Okay. Matitin loki atana, our Mishnah is not against the following Tana. Temper it says, Rishmul midamer Rishmul Rishmon. Basabah halab asur b'achila, meal milk asur for benefit eating, mutar mutar for benefit. Shnemar, the pasuk says, Ki am kadosh atay should be kadosh. Ve'nemar hanas pasuk derogay telefa, v'ashek kadosh li should be kadosh. Madan asur b'achila mutar, just like over there, it's asur for eating, but mutar for benefit. Afkan asur b'achila, hanas asur regarding meal milk, it's asur for eating, but mutar for benefit. Okay. Rabbi Akiva, Amar Rabbi Hayat, also mentioned Rabbi Akiva says regarding hayot, undomesticated animals, and bird meat. It's not a sore for milk midoraita. Hana afkinu mishmua. One second, because he brought proof from the Lot Shakati, but we said we need that for something else that's including nevila and halev, so you can't use that teach over here. The Gemara says because Rabbi Akiva isur halal isur. Yeah, because no problem because I hold that an isur can land on top of a previous isur. Halev meta lot sheichakar. I don't need a pasuk to teach me halev and meat of an animal to be included over here in meat and milk. And the fetus I don't need to proof because that is considered a actual piece of meat, and therefore I don't need proof. Act really cool, therefore I have three extra words to teach over here. Excluding a non-domestic animal, a bird, and a non-kosher animal, that they all are asur, meat and milk.